What's up? Welcome to the show. I have another DIY project. This one I would put on a scale between 1 and 10, 10 being the most difficult. This is freaking 10. I've been working on this project off and on for the past 2 years or so, and it's the fiberglass bodywork that I'm doing here on the side of the van here. I had a vent here for the old fridge, if you don't know. Took out the fridge and put in a 12-volt Engel fridge, so didn't need this vent here. And so I've been trying to do some fiberglass work, and yeah, it's a pain in the ass. And if I had to do it again, I'd probably have to do it again because can't really afford the to pay someone. They'd probably want a ridiculous amount of money. So that's what I'm doing, and today I'm going to be trying to finish up on a couple things, a couple tricks I've came up with. So I'll show you here in a bit, and here's a couple of things I'm going to be using today. And also, if you're trying to tackle fiberglass work like this, get yourself a belt sander. For the longest time I was trying to sand with a orbit sander, and it's just I mean, I would have been here for days. Yesterday I put on another coat of fiberglass, fiber mat and stuff, and I kind of screwed up and just like threw a bunch on, so I had a bunch of high spots. Sitting there with the orbiter sander, I would have been there for a week. So went to the store and got a belt sander, and that is the way to go to sand all that. But here's a couple of things that I'm going to be using today. This is just a couple of them. I'm going to be doing some more resin work, but I got a bunch of these epoxy with these self-mixing tips. I'll show you that in a second. Bunch of real cheap disposable paintbrushes, and I bought a nice one to replace my mom and stepdad's one that I used yesterday, so I got him a nicer one. And I got some string, and I'll show you what I'm going to be using that for in a second. And these are always great. These are free. Of course, some bowls, mixing cups, and that guy. So let me set the camera up and film me doing a little bit of stuff here. First thing that I want to do, you might be able to see it from there. There's a gap between the vehicle and where the hole used to be. It's a tiny little gap. So first I'm going to put some string inside the gap. The upper is the worst gap there, and you can probably see I can move the top half. So I'm going to try to fix that. So that one's probably going to use a lot of string, so I'm just going to get a bunch of string together. Another thing I'd like to mention is yesterday when I put these several layers, I don't know how many layers has it been, but after doing that, I then took a router and routed around where the line is, and in doing so, I'm going to put another layer of fiberglass mat. First thing, like I said, I'll get the string in there, and again, the reason why I took a router to it, I'll show you later on in the video, but I wanted to create a level surface between the two halves. That way when I put the fiberglass mat, the fiberglass cloth, as you can see, it's woven tight. Anyway, you'll see later on in the video, I'm going to cut it down to where it fits inside the little gap there caused by the router, and it would give me a nice bond between the two halves. At least that's what I'm guessing is going to happen. So just start shoving the string in here. And the string is just, I believe it's going to reinforce the gap here, and also is going to take up more space, so that I don't have to use so much material use inside this gap. I hope I'm explaining that correctly in a way that you can understand. But yeah, basically it's going to fill in some of this empty space. That way I'm not using a whole lot of the epoxy. And it should make it a nice stronger seam as well. Kind of like the fiberglass itself, just that it's string. So just kind of get that shoved in there. And remember, guys, I'm not an expert at this. I'm just coming up with this idea. I don't have much experience in automotive bodywork. The professionals would probably have an easier method, and they probably wouldn't give a shit too much about that gap. But I don't know. For me, I think I would like to have the two bonded very well together. That way in the future there's no cracking or anything. So when I go to paint this thing, I would imagine if it's not a very good bond between these two pieces, that it could have a chance to crack, and then the paint would suffer. And then I think I would have to be back to the drawing board and have to redo all this again. So if there is any professionals watching, let me know how I'm doing, and let me know if this is something that you would do for your own vehicle. You probably wouldn't do it for maybe a customer's vehicle, because maybe it's a little overboard. But it just seems to make sense to me. I don't know. You know, with the vehicle going down the road vibrating and hitting bumps and stuff, and the chassis and stuff twisting, I would just assume that these two pieces are not bonded very well together, that yeah, it could have an opportunity to crack at the seams, and that wouldn't be good. Man, this takes a lot of stuff. There's a really big gap. Maybe what I'll do is I'll get some mat, some fiberglass mat, and try to shove some of that in there too. That might speed along the process here. Yeah, let me go do that. So as you can see at the top, I just cut some strands off of fiberglass mat, and just shoved it in there. So now let me work on a couple of these other smaller little gaps. These are really tiny, so just a couple pieces of strand of string should do the trick. One, maybe two on the bottom there. This side looks pretty tight. All right, somewhere like that. All right, so now I'm ready to put the epoxy in. And the stuff I'm using here sets in 5 minutes, and it holds 3200 psi, and it's made by Loctite. So I think I'll start at the bottom first and the sides, because the top I'm going to have to sit here and hold this for a little while so I can keep this lined up with each other. So Let's actually first, I'm gonna let the first bit come out, so I know I have a really good mixture. Pretty good. And obviously the reason why I got this one is because of the needle, where I can get it inside these cracks the best I can anyway. And also, guys, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but all these little spots here, little bubbles that were created yesterday when a couple days ago actually, when I did this last. You see all these little craters and air pockets. What I'm trying to do is go around. I can see kind of like where there's an air pocket, and if it's a real big one, or if it's loose material like this, I'm trying to pick all that out. So I'm trying to pick all those little things off, so because they're kind of loose, and again, that will cause an issue later on after it's painted and everything. Those little flakes could fall off, and then I'm in trouble. So all these little spots here, I'm just trying to open up these craters so that I could fill them in with some more fiberglass resin and fiberglass. Some of them are so small, I don't think I can fit any fiber into it. But like this here, like all these little pieces that are just flaking off. All right, so I gave that about an hour or two to cure. I just took my rotary sander and I just knocked off all the little high spots of epoxy, because now I'm going to take my router and go over this little section again and just get all these little high spots of epoxy out of there. And I think I might set my blade a little bit deeper. I don't want to go too deep where I'll go all the way through the thickness of the entire fiberglass. I want to go a little bit deeper so I can get a thicker piece of, maybe 2 or 3 layers of fiberglass on top of the seam. You can kind of still see the seam here and there, but it's looking a lot better. And see, there's a little bit there, but that's okay. And as you can see now, it doesn't really, the two pieces don't move independently like it used to. Now it seems more like one piece. And again, once I put that fiberglass mat along that seam as well, that should give it a nice solid bond. So again, I'm not a professional, but that just seems the way to do it, the proper way to do it. And then I'll probably have to take the belt sander again, and I don't know if you can see these little light spots, but those are little air bubbles underneath the layer of fiberglass. Some of them don't look too bad. I just don't want any loose pieces to eventually pop off once I paint and everything. I want to make sure that nothing like that happens. Some of these pockets are down deep enough, I think it won't cause an issue. So let me set up the router and get the blade and set up and everything. Alright, so this is the blade that I'm using. I think it's, I don't know, maybe a 1/2 inch, maybe a 1/2 inch thick. And that's what I'm using. Now let me put the depth on this thing. And it's hardly any depth. I hardly want any material taken, because I just don't want to go all the way through. I don't know if you can see that, but it's barely coming through there. I need a little bit more, I think, than that. So let me, maybe something like that. Like 1/8 of an inch or so. that should be plenty. So let me plug this thing in and I'll set you guys up and I'll just do a little fast forward. Okay, so now as you can see, I cleaned up that gap again with the router, and nice and level and smooth. And now I'll start cutting the fiberglass mat and start to get that ready. Alright, this part's going to be a bit messy. My hands are going to be filthy, so I'm just going to let the GoPro run, and I'm going to try not to touch it until this is over. So maybe a cool time lapse. Okay, so I think I'll let that dry and maybe get the sander out and sand it. I'm not sure if I'm up to the thickness yet, so maybe another 3 or 4 strips. may have picked up what I was doing, but I made a slurry with the dust that was collected from all the sanding and the fiberglass resin. And man, I think that really worked nice on getting all the little potholes and all the little crevices. I cleaned out some of the spots where there was thin material over top, and so it was like a cave, I guess you could say, good word, like in between the lines here where the two pieces meet again. So I just kind of try to clear those out so I can get this mixture, this slurry, inside the crevice. And man, that really worked out nice. You know, again, it filled in all these tiny little holes. So I'm really happy with that. It looks like maybe another day doing this, and then, you know, more hours getting it dialed in and getting it completely smooth. Maybe with some Bondo after everything's said and done. And then from there, I think I will take it to actually a buddy of mine's buddy paints. So I might take the entire vehicle to him and let him do whatever kind of other body work that needs to be done here. You can see I hit here, so maybe he can fix that. And then there's a couple other little rock chips and stuff here and there. Maybe, you know, I'll see if he can't repair those simple things for me before he paints. But that's the plan anyway. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know, you know, what he's going to charge. But I would like to get this thing painted like a gray color and then black, like a gray and black two-tone. I would really like to put ghost skulls all over the bottom where it would be black. I would love to do some kind of ghost skulls. That would look awesome. You know, I don't want something that pops out at you, but if you look at it in the right angle, you'll see the skulls and everything all inside the black part. But anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up. There might be a part 2 of this thing, but I think for now, I think I'm just going to clean up everything and maybe just let this thing sit overnight and then come back tomorrow and sand again. Give it another sanding. And then I think I want to do a top layer of this matte. Do one more just small layer over the entire thing. So over the entire thing. And I don't even know if that's necessary, but because I'm probably going to end up sanding all of it off anyway. But it's hard for me to tell how low I am here, between here and there. So I don't know. It's but you saw me with the stick earlier. It looked like I was pretty level, pretty lined up. So we'll see. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with myself. It looks like that slurry really worked well. So I'm happy with that. All right, well, thanks for watching. See you.